The first light of dawn bathes the Alaskan wilderness in a golden glow. Towering spruce trees stretch toward the heavens, their branches laden with a fresh layer of snow. The air is crisp, almost electric, as life stirs in the forest. A distant cry echoes through the valley, both primal and raw, signaling the beginning of a story that will forever alter our understanding of one of nature's most majestic creatures. In a quiet corner of a wildlife sanctuary, nestled among the rugged terrain, Arya the grizzly bear lies in labor. Her heaving breaths send clouds of steam into the frigid air. One by one her cubs are born, tiny miracles of life. But as the last cub enters the world, the atmosphere shifts. The sanctuary team, seasoned scientists and caretakers, freezes in disbelief. What they witness defies everything they thought they knew about grizzly bears. Little did they realize, this moment would send ripples through the scientific community, challenging centuries of knowledge and igniting a wave of curiosity about the mysteries of evolution and survival. Arya's story begins long before this remarkable birth. She's a survivor, a symbol of resilience in a rapidly changing world. But now, as her sixth cub lets out its first fragile cry, she becomes something more, a key to unlocking secrets hidden in the depths of nature's grand design. Arya's journey to the sanctuary was one of hardship and resilience. It began 2 years earlier, deep within Alaska's vast wilderness, where she had roamed freely, a solitary figure etched against a backdrop of towering peaks and endless sky. Her life had been an unforgiving battle for survival, a dance of predator and prey, of harsh winters and fleeting summers. One fateful day her world collided with humanity. A small plane carrying supplies to a remote outpost had gone down in her territory. The resulting commotion drew Arya to investigate, her innate curiosity overcoming her caution. Tragically, what she found was a trap, a team of poachers who had ventured beyond legal bounds. They had not been hunting for survival but for sport, for trophies. When the sanctuary's rescue team arrived days later, alerted by a tip, they found her emaciated and barely alive, her leg caught in a brutal snare. The team named her Arya, inspired by her haunting, low growls that echoed like a mournful song. With care and patience, she recovered at the sanctuary. However, there was something different about her from the start. Even among the other rescued bears, Arya exuded an intelligence, a calm presence that seemed almost unnatural. While the others lumbered and foraged, she watched, calculated, and learned. Her keepers often joked that she was planning her escape, but it wasn't fear or defiance in her eyes. It was something else entirely, something they couldn't place. Months passed, and Arya adjusted to her new life, thriving in the expansive, protected habitat the sanctuary provided. Yet just as she seemed to settle into this safe haven, the team began noticing subtle changes. Her appetite surged, and her behavior shifted. She became more territorial, fiercely guarding certain areas of her enclosure. Her movements grew sluggish, her body language hinting at something profound. When the sanctuary's vet team confirmed Arya was pregnant, the news sent a ripple of excitement through the facility. A pregnant grizzly bear in captivity was a rare event. For a bear like Arya, who had survived against the odds, it was nothing short of miraculous. But there was something unusual about her pregnancy from the start. A routine ultrasound revealed anomalies, shadows and shapes that suggested more than one cub. This was unexpected, as grizzlies typically give birth to litters of 2 or 3 cubs. Arya, it seemed, was defying the odds once again. The keepers watched her closely as the weeks turned into months. As her due date neared, Arya's behavior became even more peculiar. She dug tirelessly, creating elaborate dens far more complex than the usual birthing site. She seemed restless, as though anticipating something beyond the ordinary. Finally, the day arrived. The sanctuary team gathered in hushed anticipation, cameras at the ready to document what they hoped would be a rare and beautiful event. None of them could have predicted the extraordinary drama about to unfold. As the labor began, the first cub arrived quickly. Tiny, fragile, and covered in damp fur, it was perfect in every way. Cheers of relief and joy echoed softly among the team as Arya nudged her newborn close. Moments later, a second cub emerged, then a third. By the time the fifth cub was born, exhaustion painted Arya's every movement, yet there was no mistaking her maternal devotion as she attended to each of her newborns. The team was already marveling at the rarity of 5 cubs, a number almost unheard of in grizzlies, when Arya let out a low, guttural growl. The air grew tense as the team realized something unexpected was happening. Against all odds, there was a 6th. What happened next would leave them speechless. The air in the observation room was thick with anticipation. Arya's labor had already defied expectations with the arrival of 5 healthy cubs, each wriggling and squirming, their faint cries filling the den. The sanctuary team stood mesmerized by the sight, their monitors capturing every detail. 5 cubs were rare enough, a triumph of biology and resilience, but Arya wasn't done. Her body convulsed once more, her growls turning into a primal roar. On the monitor, the team saw her shift slightly, her massive paw instinctively clearing a small space in the den. Moments later, a final cub emerged, smaller than its siblings but unmistakably alive. At first there was relief, even jubilation. 6 cubs. It was a feat that bordered on the impossible. But as the team took in the scene, their excitement gave way to confusion, then shock. The 6th cub was different. Unlike its siblings, whose fur glistened in shades of golden brown, this one's coat was pale, almost silvery. Its tiny ears were rounded and larger than expected, its limbs unusually slender. And most striking of all were its eyes, open wide, glimmering with an intensity uncharacteristic of a newborn. While the other cubs squirmed and fumbled, this one lay still for a moment, blinking deliberately as though surveying its new world. What is that? One of the researchers whispered, breaking the stunned silence. Even Arya hesitated. Her maternal instincts had carried her through the births of her first 5 cubs with tireless dedication. But now she paused. Slowly, cautiously, she nudged the 6th cub closer to her side, as though trying to make sense of what she had brought into the world. The sanctuary team scrambled into action. Cameras zoomed in on the peculiar cub, capturing every detail for analysis. Within minutes, the lead biologist, Dr. Elena Vasquez, was already making notes. "It doesn't make sense," she muttered half to herself. "It's almost hybridized. The word hung in the air, an impossibility for grizzly bears who were known for their genetic purity in this region. But there it was, undeniable and alive, defying logic and expectation. Arya, seemingly unfazed by her cub's strange appearance, began nursing her litter. The 6th cub nestled among its siblings, smaller but no less vigorous, its silvery coat catching the light as it squirmed closer to its mother. Hours passed as the team monitored the den, their initial shock giving way to questions. What could explain the anomaly? Was it a rare genetic mutation, an ancient trait resurfacing, or something entirely unprecedented? Dr. Vasquez ordered a preliminary DNA sample from the cub, using a non-invasive method to avoid disturbing the delicate family. The results, she knew, would take time. Until then, the team could only speculate. Back in the den, the dynamic between the cubs began to reveal itself. The first 5 clambered over one another, a tangle of tiny limbs and soft cries. The 6th cub, however, seemed more deliberate. While its siblings blindly groped their way to Arya's warmth, this one moved with an uncanny precision, as though guided by an innate awareness. "It's almost like it's observing them," one caretaker remarked, her voice tinged with awe. As night fell over the sanctuary, the team could barely pull themselves away from the monitors. Outside, the Alaskan wilderness remained untouched, oblivious to the groundbreaking discovery that had just taken place within its bounds. For Arya, the ordeal was over. She rested, her body curled protectively around her young. Yet, even in her exhaustion, she seemed hyper-aware of her 6th cub, often lifting her head to check on it as it nestled close. It was a bond both natural and extraordinary, a mother's instinct tempered by curiosity. Little did the team know, the mystery of this cub was only beginning to unfold. The sanctuary would soon be thrust into the spotlight as scientists worldwide clamored for answers. And the tiny silvery cub, small, unassuming, and yet profoundly different, would challenge everything they thought they knew about the natural world. The sanctuary's lab buzzed with activity as dawn broke over the Alaskan wilderness. Overnight, the sixth cub had become the center of attention, not just for the sanctuary team, but for the global scientific community. Images and initial observations of the cub had been shared with trusted researchers, sparking a wildfire of curiosity. Phones rang incessantly, emails flooded in, and hypotheses began circulating before the first genetic tests were even complete. In the den, Arya remained calm, tending to her cubs with unwavering focus. The sixth cub, now affectionately dubbed Echo by the team, continued to stand out. While its siblings moved clumsily in unison, Echo exhibited behaviors that seemed almost calculated. The cub's silvery coat shimmered in the early light, a stark contrast to the earthy tones of its siblings. And those eyes, piercing, alert, and uncommonly aware, drew the gaze of anyone who watched. Dr. Elena Vasquez leaned over the microscope, examining the first set of results from the non-invasive genetic sampling. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clicked through the data. At first glance, the cub's genetic profile appeared to match Arya's, but as the analysis deepened, anomalies began to surface. "Do you see this?" she said, her voice low but urgent, gesturing to her colleague. "Look at these markers. This isn't just a mutation. It's something entirely different." The DNA results revealed an unexpected lineage. While Echo's genetic makeup was predominantly grizzly, there were traces of genetic material that didn't align with known populations of Ursus arctos. Instead, the markers hinted at a lineage linked to a distant and extinct relative, Ursus maritimus tyrannicus, a prehistoric ancestor of modern polar bears, thought to have vanished tens of thousands of years ago. Elena sat back in her chair, stunned. This is impossible. Polar bears and grizzlies share a common ancestor, sure, but this suggests that genetic remnants of that ancestor survived, hidden in Arya's lineage for generations. The implications were staggering. Could Echo represent a dormant genetic trait reawakened by environmental shifts, or was there more to Arya's story than anyone knew? The team pored over historical data on grizzly populations, searching for clues. Arya had been rescued from a remote region near the confluence of grizzly and polar bear territories, a place where interbreeding between the species had been theorized but never documented. Could this isolated gene pool have preserved a fragment of evolutionary history, only now manifesting in Echo? As the days passed, behavioral studies added to the intrigue. Echo's movements were more deliberate than those of its siblings, its coordination uncanny for such a young cub. Unlike the others, who huddled instinctively for warmth, Echo often ventured a few inches away, exploring its surroundings with an intensity that seemed beyond instinct. The sanctuary's lead behaviorist noted the cub's exceptional cognitive responses, comparing them to behaviors seen in older bears. While the scientific community debated, Arya's role as a mother deepened the mystery. She treated Echo with the same care as her other cubs, yet there was an undeniable tension in her movements, a sense that she recognized something extraordinary in her youngest. Her gaze lingered on Echo longer than on the others, and she often repositioned herself to shield it from view. Then came the flashback, a revelation hidden in Arya's past. In a forgotten archive, a sanctuary volunteer unearthed records from a decade prior. They detailed a massive polar bear migration event driven by melting ice caps. During this period, a few lone polar bears had been spotted wandering grizzly territories, their survival threatened by shrinking habitats. One of these wanderers had been a young male, observed near the region where Arya was later rescued. Could this explain Echo? Had Arya's lineage somehow intersected with this long-lost polar bear, creating a genetic link that now resurfaced? In her cub? The sanctuary prepared for a press conference, aware that the discovery of Echo would have profound implications, not just for the scientific community, but for conservation efforts worldwide. If grizzlies and polar bears were more intertwined than previously believed, it could reshape how scientists approach their preservation in the face of climate change. But for now, the focus remained on Echo, a tiny cub who carried the weight of an evolutionary mystery on its silvery shoulders. As the team worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, they couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that Echo's existence was a question mark on the edge of a much larger, still unfolding story. The sanctuary grounds lay quiet under a blanket of snow, the calm broken only by the playful squeals of Arya's cubs tumbling over one another. The little den that had become the center of scientific fascination now exuded a peaceful warmth. Arya, ever watchful, lay, curled protectively around her young, her massive frame a wall of safety against the encroaching cold. Echo, the silvery anomaly nestled among its siblings, no longer quite as small or frail as it once seemed. Its striking coat gleamed in the soft light of dusk, a living testament to the mysteries of nature. Over the weeks, the cubs' differences had grown more pronounced, not in size or strength but in behavior. Echo was a leader, often initiating play, guiding its siblings to explore, and exhibiting an almost uncanny adaptability to the environment. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of the observation area, a notebook clutched in her gloved hands. She watched as Echo ventured a little farther than its brothers and sisters, sniffing the air and pawing curiously at the snow. Her thoughts swirled with the data they had collected, the questions they had answered, and the countless more that remained. The discovery of Echo's unique genetic traits had sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Headlines around the world declared the cub a living link to the past, and debates raged over the implications. Some saw it as evidence of nature's resilience, a hopeful sign that species could adapt in ways previously unimaginable. Others worried it underscored the fragility of ecosystems under the pressure of climate change, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of all life. But here, in this moment, none of that seemed to matter. For Elena, what mattered most was the sight before her, a mother bear and her cubs thriving in a sanctuary carved out of the wild. Arya's journey from the brink of death to this remarkable moment was proof of the strength and will to survive. And Echo, the cub who had changed everything, was a symbol of the unforeseen miracles nature still held in its depths. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Elena reflected on the broader picture. Arya's story wasn't just about science, it was about hope, a reminder that even in a world battered by environmental challenges, life finds a way to persist, to evolve, and to inspire. She closed her notebook, watching as Arya gathered her cubs close, tucking them into the warmth of her embrace. Echo was the last to settle, its bright eyes scanning the darkening forest, as though seeing far beyond what lay ahead. Elena smiled softly, a mix of awe and gratitude washing over her. In the end, the story of Arya and her cubs was a testament to the extraordinary resilience of life, a humbling reminder of the mysteries that still linger in the wild. It was a call to action for scientists, conservationists, and anyone who cared about the natural world to protect these fragile wonders before it was too late. As the sanctuary lights dimmed and the Alaskan wilderness reclaimed the night, a quiet peace fell over the den. Arya's gentle growls faded into silence as she and her cubs slipped into sleep. And there, under the endless stars, Echo lay nestled at her side, a small silvery cub carrying the legacy of the past and the promise of the future.